Hey, Kirk.
Hey, Ken. Good to be here.
Dude, so for those of you watching at home or listening to this is Kirk Faulkner. Kirk Faulkner has been in the mortgage business for quite some time.
A while.
And I've known Kirk for also a long time. I mean, we've been in the same business, the same town for a long time, but really gotten to know you a lot more lately. And that's the funny thing is we talked when you were in mortgage. We talked more since you have left mortgage, but it's been so nice just grabbing coffee and chatting. And funny thing is I told Mindy that she always likes to check in on my week. And I was like, I went to coffee with Kirk this morning. And she's like, what? And I'm like, Kirk Faulkner, went to coffee with him. And she's like, well, was that is that something that you wanted to do? Cause I take coffee with people sometimes. And then I'm like, yeah, and I'm going to do it again lots. Cause dude, after that, I'm like, I get so much, sometimes you meet with somebody and you're like, this is a business transaction. We're going to talk about business or we're going to talk about something that moves one of our careers forward or whatever. I don't like those meetings very much. I like the ones like you and I had where we just chatted life for a period of time. And I came away so refreshed. And what the funny thing was I had therapy right after meeting with you. And so and then I floated. And so that entire morning was like a straight up therapy day for me of getting to talk about life, getting to connect on a life basis, and then getting to, work through life. So
I had therapy while meeting with you. So.
Nice. Well, it feels like it sometimes because when you open up and have a good conversation like we're about to have, it does feel refreshing.
Well, I have a theory that I call it my 3 C's, cooperation, collaboration, and connection. And I think the first 2 lead to the third sometimes. They don't always. Mm-hmm. But if you're cooperating and collaborating, that could be a very business-related or professional-related endeavor. And we've done that historically through your CE classes and my experience in the mortgage biz. The connection part is something that doesn't necessarily happen for every encounter, but when it happens, it's usually as a result of the first 2, and then it can be taken to a much deeper level. And to me is the beauty of life. It's human connection.
Yeah.
Whether you're talking about the people you work with, the people you have in your neighborhood, the people you socialize with or whatever, human connection is the superpower.
Yeah. And when you have that, when you see somebody and you're like, wait, this person, there's something deeper there. These conversations can roll deep. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
When you find that, you take the next coffee appointment.
And it gives life meaning to a certain extent.
It does. Yeah. I used to say I'm a collector of friends, but I feel like that sounds cheap. I'm not trying to collect friends. Some of the best experiences I have in life are with these relationships that I form over time where you have somebody you can go back to and talk to. So.
Yeah, and some of them are for a season. Our working relationship was for a season. I'm no longer in the business. We'll probably talk about that a little bit. But it's ironic that you mentioned that our relationship deepened, the connection deepened when I got out of the business, and now we're just getting together talking about life and kids and, everything unrelated.
And traveling
still the business.
And yeah,
traveling and passions and all that fun stuff.
So let's get some history here. So you, where'd you go to college?
Eastern Washington University.
Wow.
Home of the Mighty Eagles.
Yeah,
I wanted to play ball for Don James at the U, and I sent my game films in to Coach James. My next door neighbor was the assistant AD at the University of Washington. I sent my high school game film in, which at the time is film in a tin can. It wasn't video, so that's how old I am. And my neighbor brought it back a week or 2 later with a 3x5 note card from Coach James taped to the top with 2 words that impacted my football future, which was too slow.
No.
So it's all right. I was. So I went to Eastern and played ball there for a year and a half till I had a weightlifting accident that blew out 3 discs in my back and had surgery later and all that stuff. So that was the end of my inglorious college football career.
Wow. Eastern's they get a lot of Camas kids. So we send a lot of kids that way.
Dick Zorns was the head coach at the time, and he had led a small junior college to a national championship. He came to Eastern and really helped catapult them into the big sky. It wasn't big sky when I was there, but they were well on their way to catapulting to that level. So great program, great school.
Yeah.
Loved it there.
Yeah. It's also funny you bring that up because this morning we're in a family group text, and we're freakish Camas family. We are Camas to the core.
So am I.
And Jack Coletto is currently trying to get into the NFL. And I actually did a full video on the jackhammer. And so the text came back, I hope his 40's fast enough to get on the map because speed apparently is a big deal at that level. But that's hilarious. I do want to ask you, before going any further, I didn't know that about your injury in college. And I look at people. I
collect them. It's one of many.
Oh, is it? Well, I look at people like Myers Leonard, and I look at Greg Oden, and I look at some of these guys that had it all. They not had it all, but they had the talent. They poured themselves into their sport. They poured themselves into like their passion. And then an injury, even with, the Gloves' son, Gary Payton II, an injury, coming back from an injury is not just physical, it's psychological. You had built your college acumen, you're playing your football acumen, you're playing high school football, you're getting into college football at Eastern, you have an injury and it's just done?
Done. I mean, arguably I could have attempted to continue, but I no longer had the capacity for squats or deadlift, or I could still bench, I could still keep my upper body strong, but I was an offensive lineman. So I had to evaluate whether or not I could move forward with what's required to be effective at that position, which means you got to be able to push arms, hips, legs. You have to be able to explode off the line, and you have to be strong. And I knew that I herniated one. I had 2 bulging discs above that. Herniated the disc above S1, above your tailbone. 2 severely bulging above that. And my ability to perform on the field was affected, less so, but my ability to train for that position on the field was dramatically affected. And I was an 18-year-old kid who couldn't walk at the time. I mean, I was in some serious pain and decided it's time to make some choices about what I'm going to do with my life. And clearly I'm not playing pro ball. So if college is the end of the road for me, and that was objectively true, then how do I move forward with this injury with my long-term best interests at heart? And even though I was young, I managed to make that decision in what I think was probably the best decision in the moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you switch majors? Did you just kind of stay in the same major and figure it out?
No, I stayed in the same major. I graduated with a degree in radio television management. My uncle owned an ad agency in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I fancied myself one day going to work for Uncle Jim. He was hugely successful, phenomenal entrepreneur. And I thought I didn't want to work on the mic side of radio. I wanted to work in the management side of radio or television. And I thought going to work for my uncle, getting some exposure in that world, and that might be the way to go. So,
and look at you now on the mic side of the business.
Now I'm on the mic side, and I do have a face for radio. So.
Well, and with that voice, you were not going to be on a mic.
I did work in radio for a year after college and really dug it. I was in sales, but I still got to do some of my own spots and record the audio for some of my own spots, and I really dug it. Radio's fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
What happened after that?
He sold the ad agency. So the opportunity to work for Uncle Jim.
My God.
Yeah, right about the time I was graduating or just before, he sold the agency and made a fortune, like everything else he did. And I just worked for a year in radio because that was kind of the launch pad for a young kid out of college with a degree in radio television management, go sell at a media outlet. I was a horrible little, crappy little AM station in Spokane, Washington, where the signal barely covered downtown Spokane. And I lasted for a year. Towards the end of that year, payroll checks were bouncing and all that stuff. So I decided it was time to. My dad passed away in the middle of that at the age of 49. I lost my dad, which was a significant impact on my decision. So I moved home back to Bellevue, and that's where my mom lived, and started a new life and moved in a different direction.
We're still early on in your life.
Very,
you work towards something, and then you get smacked, in the head, and then you work towards something else, and then that changes. So from early on, you handled disappointment.
Well, yeah. I mean, the biggest disappointment with losing my dad, the radio station, it was just a job. It wasn't a passion. My dad and I had a pretty contentious relationship growing up, and I won't go far down that road, but I was a bit of a wild kid, and that affected, my relationship with my dad. We had begun to repair that as I was becoming a man and maturing and getting ready to move on in life and start being adult. And then he dropped dead of a heart attack in Houston on Boeing business at 49. So that was one of those major moments in life that alters your direction, your perception, your perspective. It alters just about everything. So, and still to this day, my dad never met my kids. He never met my first wife. He met her. It wasn't at my wedding. There's so many events in my life that are landmark events, that are epochs, right? Of anybody's life that's made it 6 decades, that he wasn't a part of. So, and then of course there's that contentious piece where we had some headbutting along the way that I wish we had time to resolve. So all of those things led into who Kirk was and is, and the decisions I made. My mom was alone now. She was married to him for 29 years, and it was time to go home and take care of mom and be around mom and at least be close enough to be in proximity. So that's what I did.
Wow. Did that change the way you look at like relationships? And they always say, don't go to bed angry. Does that?
For whatever reason, I've lost a lot of people along the way. Back in high school, friends killed in car accidents. Tragically, a friend murdered in the Factoria Cinemas parking lot just after high school. So many different events. Death's just been kind of right there. So much so that Marcus Aurelius, I believe, I read this in The Obstacle is the Way, Ryan Holiday's great book, the Latin phrase, memento mori, remember death. Mm-hmm. And it might be my next tattoo. I have amor fati, which is Latin for the love of fate, kind of the obstacle is the way, the Stoic approach of if it's in your path, it's for you. Memento mori is not a morbid idea that you keep in your mind to live in fear of death. It's just a reminder that this is temporal. We are here for a moment, and you better do something meaningful with those moments, because this could be, I could live till I'm 85 or 95 years old. That would be great, as long as I'm functional, lucid. Mm-hmm. I could get hit by a bus walking out the door today. And memento mori is just simply that reminder. And all of those vivid experiences along the way have been reminders that you got today, and that is all you have. So you better, even if stuff's not going your way, even if the shit has hit the fan, you're still breathing. And you still have people that love you, almost certainly. And you still have people that you love. And I got up this morning and I went outside, and I have been complaining about the weather for days, right? It's just been raining. It seems like forever. And I walk out, I get up really early, and I do my morning like meditation and clear my mind and focus. And I walk out on the deck and I look up, and it's blue sky and stars. I took a picture of it and I posted it on social media because it was a reminder that it may have rained for 10 days straight, but it's beautiful right now. And rain came, can't change that. And ground needed it, whatever. The mountains needed the snow. This morning, I got that, and so today's a good day. So,
dude, when I spoke this week for a group in Vancouver, I was talking to them about all these things that I'm going through to try to like better my life and put myself in a better spot, both mentally and physically and emotionally and in business. And I said I had 5 steps for like getting perspective, and the 5th one is you are here, it is now, and this is good. And it's like, we're all in a room together. We're all smiling. And like, even though whatever out there can suck, like right now is awesome. And so I'm trying to like save those moments and like almost take a snapshot in my head of, okay, right now is awesome. Cause tomorrow might not be. And but right now I'm actually digging this. And I love that you said that about weather, cause I complain about weather a lot. And you look at a day like this and you just go,
exactly.
Yeah. And by the way, this Daily Stoic, we just went on vacation, and my daughter's boyfriend was with us. And every morning we'd sit down and I'd read him the Daily Stoic, which is Ryan Holiday's. Do you have that? Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
and I introduced him to it because I'm like, I think you're going to dig this. And that's what helped me, get that today is good. Let's just do that. And then also, you're going to die soon.
Well, what a great book title, right? It transcends to life itself. If you just remember, the obstacle is the way. If it's in your path, it's for you. It might not be a pleasant thing. It might be there to simply teach you, from puking, running 100-yard wind sprints in college, in the heat of Cheney in the summertime, to losing my dad, to cancer, to whatever it is that's come around in my life. The obstacle is the way. You can either learn from it or you can be destroyed by it. Really 2 choices. But if it's there for a purpose. And resisting it I'm not saying anyone should choose to dwell in a place of pain or negativity. If you can extricate yourself in an effective way that doesn't cause you to compromise all the values of your life, then do so. But in the process of doing so, it's probably going to take time if it's truly a painful place. In the process of doing so, there is gold along the way. But like gold, it's refined by fire, and that's how the dross of gold is burned out. They heat it up really hot, and all the impurities are burned out, and that's when you're left with refined gold or pure gold, is they burn the shit out of it, right?
Right.
Well, so it is with our lives, right? The heat of life, the pain of life, the difficulties of life, and the joys and wonders of life are all part of the experience. It's taken me 60 years to learn that lesson, but I won't say that I've learned it. I will say I am in the process of continuing to learn that lesson.
I just yesterday said, because I'm going through some things, and I just went, this is going to be so awesome to be on the other side of this. Like, I can't wait to see what I've learned and see who I am and who I've become after going through pain. Like, it is the only time I can remember massive growth in my life as a human is when I've been in difficult situations, or, normally when you're booming and everything's awesome, you don't grow a ton as a human, for me at least. But every single time I've gone through something, I come out the other side like, man, I'm so much better now.
Yeah, sometimes they're ugly lessons. The great quote, I can't remember who coined it, but difficult circumstances don't determine their character, they simply reveal it.
Yeah.
And there have been times where the difficult circumstances have revealed less than I would have liked. I have failed in some of my responses to challenges, and I have to own that, just like I have to own the growth that I look for. But either way, even those failures in the context of what we're talking about are obstacles that are the way.
Yeah. I'll never forget, I was on a building champions call during the pandemic, and it was a bunch of mortgage industry leaders. I don't remember who said it, but somebody said, hey, you guys, your team will remember how you acted this year. And I'm like, no, I don't want them to remember how I acted this year. It was so convicting, because it's like, oh, that's right. Like, how I perform in the times that are tough, that's what people will remember about, like, do you follow somebody who crumbles in the face of difficult situations, or do you follow somebody who leads you through those things?
Yeah.
Which is where the great Stoics, that's where they got their chops, right? Is they
I
led
think their
through tough
difficulties
times.
might have eclipsed ours by a degree or two.
A little bit, yeah. However, we're going to skip a ton of life right now, because I want to go into, you're not just talking in theory. I remember when you were first diagnosed with cancer. I still remember my conversation with you. And I'm sure I told a few people about that conversation, because it didn't make any sense to me how you were handling your diagnosis. Because I've talked to people who get diagnosed. It's a massively difficult and devastating thing.
It's a shock.
But you had this, like, yeah, I'm going to beat it. Like, you just had this, it actually felt like you looked at it as, okay, well, yeah, we'll see how this goes, and we're going to knock it out. And I walked away going, does he not know he has cancer? Like, it was, in my own head, it didn't fit. Your response didn't fit.
I remember lining up for practice in Eastern for football one day, early on, very early, young freshman in college, right? Mm-hmm. Recruited and supposed to do good things. And I lined up from he's a junior or senior. His name was Walter Flatt. He was one of the studs on the team. And so I thought, this is my chance. I'm not saying I'm going to knock him on his butt, but I'm going to hold my own with Walter. So the ball snapped. I fire into Walter, and I held my own. I stood as a freshman football player. I stood up to one of the studs on the defensive line. Back to the huddle, call another play. Here we go again. I'm gonna lay into him again. Ball snaps. All of a sudden, I find myself pedaling backwards. I can't keep my momentum moving forward, and pretty soon I'm laying flat on my back, and 6'6" Walter Flatt standing over the top of me going, half speed, freshman, half speed. So I gave Walter all I had that first play, and I held my own. Walter wasn't even trying. And on play number 2, he decided he would show me what full speed looked like, and I ended up on my back in the backfield.
Gosh.
And I got back up. And that lesson, was I embarrassed? Of course I was embarrassed. I also learned a valuable lesson. First of all, don't assume. Second of all, get back up. And the next play, I played. I lined up against Walter. I had to go after him again. So I did. I understood it was half speed this time. I didn't try to be a hero. Learn from that lesson. I think getting back up, if I could say I've learned anything in this life, it's get back up, and that's what I learned from cancer. I don't know how much you want to delve into that, but...
Don't tell any stories you told me at coffee about the procedures.
Okay. Yeah.
Dude, that was such a conversation I would have with my dad. My dad's like, I got to tell you everything, and he's told me the same stories you've told me about some of those things. So let's just keep it...
Yeah. It was bladder cancer. So use your imagination how every single procedure is performed. I have no incisions anywhere on my body. Everything was done what they call transurethrially. So that's how everything, clear. The resection of the tumor, the treatment everything was done.
Yeah.
So I was at work one day when I was at Alpine Pinnacle over there in 192nd in the big 10,000 square foot space that Patrick Palmer rented so that I had to fill. And we did. It took a while. I'm, as every healthy man, at the urinal with one hand on the wall going to the bathroom, and pretty soon the entire stream was blood. And that's how I first became aware that there was something wrong. Happened a couple times. I kind of ignored it like men often do and went about my work and thought maybe I had kidney stone before. Maybe I had a kidney stone come loose and tear up something. And so it went away after a few days, and then it came back about a week later with a vengeance, and then it didn't go away. So I called the doc and said, hey, this happened. Need to make an appointment. All right, well, let's get you in. There's 5 or 6 things it could be, and they always list it, and always the last thing is cancer. So I go in for a CT scan. First it's a CT scan, then it's a cystoscopy where they shove a scope up that path that you don't want to talk about.
I think we all know.
I did get to see inside my bladder in high definition, 4K.
The 4K screen. Nice.
CT scan is up at the clinic, at Vancouver Clinic up by Legacy. Drive up there from the office, have the scan. On my way back, I'm 5 minutes down the road, 10 minutes down the road on 205. Phone rings, doctor's office. Hey, Kirk, doctor wants to know if we can reschedule your cystoscopy for this Thursday instead of next Tuesday. I said, why? And she said, well, we had cancellations and we always like to get this stuff done sooner than later. I said, okay. She said, also, he wants to know if you're available for surgery on Friday. I said, put the doctor on the phone. So he gets on the phone and said, yeah, you got a golf ball size tumor in your bladder and we got to get in there and get it out. It's cancer. I said, well, wait a minute, dude. You saw something on an image. You haven't done a biopsy. You haven't tested this thing. He goes, nope, we haven't. And that's cancer and I got to get it out of you. So from Tuesday scan to still went through with the scope on Thursday, in which I saw the golf ball sized tumor just floating around in my bladder like that. It looked like cauliflower or something like that. It was removed, resected, they call it, 2 different surgical procedures to remove it. It was graded as a highly aggressive form of cancer, however, stage 1. So that began my journey with cancer. Stage 1 diagnosis with a really nasty form of cancer. And I started, that was in, had to be October, November of 2010. Surgery in early 2011. Surgery in 2010. And then treatment started in early 2011, like February. I started my first round of treatments, which is its own unique experience. And that lasted through 2014. So 3 years of treatment, another few months of diagnosis and surgery and all that. So late 2010 to early 2014 was my entire cancer experience. And I would schedule my treatments on Thursday. I would go into the office on Monday, and I would work Monday through Thursday. I would work half a day on Thursday. I'd take myself to the clinic. I was living by myself at the townhouses out there at 2 Creeks at Camas Meadows. So I'd drive myself in. My son and daughter my daughter was in California. My son was living elsewhere. I took Friday off so I could have some recovery time. And then by Monday I was back at work. And I'm not saying, and I doubt anyone that worked with or for me at the time would say Kirk was at his best, because I clearly wasn't. But I showed up. I still continued to do what I needed to do. And then I endured 3 years of on and off cancer treatment for, I don't even remember how many rounds it was at this point. But
was work a kind of a respite from the...
Yeah, work in the gym. I would still go to the gym. I couldn't do much because I was so fatigued, but I'd get on the elliptical and at least get my heart rate up a little bit and do a little bit of light lifting. But work was that I got to show up, and they were gracious with me. It was Patrick Palmer and the Alpine Pinnacle group at that point, and always had Friday off during treatments. There were times where you got weeks off from treatment, so I would go to work. But during treatment, it was really uncertain how the body was going to respond to the treatment. So I would take Friday off to have time to recover, but back in the office on Monday, almost without exception. And it was cathartic for me. I'm going to work. I'm going to get on the elliptical. I'm going to do as much normal stuff as I can do. I don't care what the diagnosis is, and this is not going to kill me, which is a bet I could not have backed if I wanted to, but it was just my mindset.
Were there waves of belief and waves of concern and like maybe not, or was it just constant?
I always say that the diagnosis of cancer gives you grit and resolve and determination and a will to fight. And it came at a time in my life where I needed a good enemy, right? There's something, and maybe that's just purely masculine, I don't know, but I needed a conquest, and here we go. So the diagnosis gives you all these really good things. I'll just summarize it by saying grit, right? You got to get gritty if you get diagnosed with cancer. The treatment gives you discouragement, despair, despondency, and depression. Or maybe not clinical depression, but still. It sucks the life out of you. During treatment, it can be just really so fatiguing and so draining, and you're puking all the time. And I had this routine I had to go through whenever I was in treatment. And I remember driving myself to my very first treatment. And I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm going to kick cancer's butt. I am not succumbing to this. So I drive myself to the treatment. I go through the process. I go home. I do exactly like I'm told. And I wake up on Friday morning feeling like I got beat up a little bit, but I'm feeling, okay, I got this. And by Saturday, I felt better. I think I took myself out to breakfast at Mother's Bistro in Portland and sat at the bar and kind of puffed up. I didn't say anything to anybody, of course, but I was sitting there by myself with my chest puffed out going, cancer, I got this. And so next treatment was on a Thursday. So I took myself out to lunch at Jerusalem Cafe, nice spicy Mediterranean meal. Went and got treatment, went home. I have never been so sick and miserable in my entire life. And that began the roller coaster of my cancer treatments. And some of them were very tolerable. Many, as it went on, and the stuff they put in your body, BCG, builds up over time, they got less and less tolerable. So by the end, it was like, I'm halfway through treatment, I said to the doctor, listen, we've been doing this for a year and a half now. I've done every single treatment. Do I really need to keep going? And he goes, well, you can stop if you want to. He said, but this treatment has a 63% non-recurrence rate, but only if you finish the protocol, all the treatments for 3 years. I said, but do people sometimes quit if they're having, all my scans are clear. They still scope me every time and my scopes are clear. Everything's clear and the treatment sucks. He goes, yeah, you can quit if you can't handle it.
Your doctor knew you pretty well by then, I think.
And I said, all right, doc, here's the deal. We'll finish. I got another year and a half left in me. And when we're done, I'm putting you on that table and I'm pumping that crap in your body and see how you handle it. He didn't seem to think that was a good idea. But I went through the rest of my treatments, went into the doctor's office for the last one. It's just at the clinic. They hook you up to a catheter. They pump this stuff into your bladder and you roll around on the floor at home for a couple hours. Then you let it do what it's going to do. And I'm in there. I'm talking to the nurse. My doctor was on vacation. So another doc is taking care of me. So the nurse comes in, talks to me, how you doing? I just sick as a dog. It's the end, right? I can see the finish line. And the nurse says, well, let me get the doc in here and talk about, maybe we can give you something for the nausea. I know this is, the end, but new doc I'd never seen before walks in, says, what are you doing here? I said, it's my treatment day. He goes, yeah, you did it. You hit the finish line. I go, this is my last one. He goes, there's nothing magical about the last one, okay? Whatever the number is of total treatments, one less, that's not the point. The point is you did it for 3 years and you haven't missed a treatment. You're telling me how sick you are. You're done. You don't need this today.
Oh my gosh.
And I just went, in my mind, I'm kind of a fly by the seat of my pants sort of guy, right? But in my mind, it was like, I've got to check every box in order to beat cancer.
Yeah.
And he's going, dude, you're done. You won. Now, he didn't know if that meant it would never recur or anything like that. But so I said, are you serious? He goes, yeah. I go, well, tell that to my doctor next time, okay? And I'm out of here.
Tell it to him like 18 months ago.
I skipped the last
treatment. Oh, you did?
I skipped
Oh,
it.
my gosh. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
That was cancer. That was 2014. I got scoped twice a year, that lovely little experience for 4 years. And once a year for a year or two, and now I'm done, clear and clean since 14. Haven't me and cancer or seeing other people.
Wow. What was can you think back to first of all, I can't imagine going through that. Like, that's perspective.
It's interesting.
Can you think back to, was there something that got you through those tougher times, or was it just bear it?
Oh, people like you. I think I told you before, there were 3 guys in my life who are not terribly emotive people typically. One of them was Matt. One of them was a guy named Monty, who's a baseball family, Camas sports guy. His son was the quarterback at Camas High School when my son was there as a receiver. The Grindy family, Monty Grindy.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So Matt, Monty, and Noah Blanton with WFG title. Independently, each one of them called me at different times right after my diagnosis. And in effect, they all said the same thing. It was something along the lines of, this sucks. I love you. If there's anything you need, I'm here for you. The seminal moment was right after diagnosis. I'm having lunch with my son at Red Robin, I believe. And my son was an athlete at Camas, and he was a standout athlete at Camas. And, he's a competitor. He's an athlete. He's a warrior. And I told him what the diagnosis was and that it wasn't great. And I said, buddy, this isn't going to get me. And he goes, he says, I know. Just matter of fact, I know. Mm-hmm. So from that moment on, it was like, I got to stick around. I got to do everything within my power to be here to see my kids have kids. Mm-hmm. And my daughter just had my very first grandchild, so I stuck around long enough to see my kids have kids. So
that so sounds like your son, by the way. He was our driver for Hood to Coast. Like, he's so funny because he's so and I play basketball with him at the gym all the time.
Yeah.
And just watching that guy be so determined on everything, like, you raised a fighter as well.
Oh, he's 5'10", maybe 5'11". He ran like a 4.6 40, and he was one of the best wide receivers in the state.
Yeah.
Certainly in GSHL. And he went on to play baseball in college for a year, but that didn't work out. And he's just a fierce competitor. He's a great kid. He's a great guy. Mm-hmm. But when it's game time, he's on. And he just reminded me that you have to be too, Dad.
Dang. Wow. That is, I get that though.
That was cancer.
When your kid looks at you and says something like that, like, yeah.
He had all the confidence in the world.
Right.
I didn't necessarily, but he had all the confidence in the world. So I just said, okay, here we go.
Man.
So go to treatment, puke, get cleaned up, rest
connect
on the
with
weekend.
family, connect with friends, hit the gym.
Yep. Do what I can.
Go to work.
Do what I can.
You were leading the company at the time, weren't you? Weren't you the
manager?
manager?
I was area manager for Alpine Pinnacle. I think they just sold or were about to sell to Pinnacle. And we had a little office over on Mill Plain in the Park Plaza complex, and we had maybe 3,000, 3,500 square feet, and maybe, 5 loan officers working there. And Palmer came in, and he had invested in that project on 192nd, one of Dean Kirkland's developments. Mm-hmm. And he said, hey, I want to come show you something, and show you this space. I want to find out if you think you can fill it up. So we go over there and look at it. It's 10,000 feet of, you were there. The place was huge. You could land a plane in that thing. And I'm just looking at him going, are you kidding me? We're profitable in our little 3,500 square feet. And he goes, well, I'll give you some love on the P&L on the lease for a while, but can you fill it up? And so that became the challenge, and we filled it up.
Dang.
It was completely full when I left. And that was all during the whole cancer ordeal.
Wow.
Or obstacle that became the way.
You started doing video around then. When was your first entrance into, like, on social media? I remember at one point I saw you start and I was like, dude, this guy's.
Yeah. Well, I've always known I had that voice for radio, right? I also like to joke I have a face for radio, but, if I can be so bold, I think one of my gifts is I'm reasonably articulate and I can put together coherent thoughts with the spoken word. So I had a lot of people reaching out going, how you doing? What's going on? And instead of answering them all individually, I started to write notes in Facebook. Remember Facebook notes? Nobody uses them anymore, but I started writing Facebook notes because you could
I forgot about
write
Facebook
more.
notes.
There's a whole ton of them on Facebook from me. And it was kind of a little bi-weekly journal about my experience with cancer. And then it turned into me starting to record some videos. And then when I got back to, post-treatment, I started recording more videos. And it's back to those 3 C's: cooperation, collaboration, and connection. If I am anything, it is a connector. Mm-hmm. I know a million people. And what I'm really good at is going, oh, you need to know you. Mm-hmm. You two people need to connect. And I love building human connection with individuals for my own benefit and hopefully reciprocal. But that's my crack is human connection. So being able to share, I hope, authentically. I'm not sure I love authentic as much as I love congruent. I try to share things that are congruent with who I am. Mm-hmm. And who I am is flawed. Who I am is not the social media persona that some might have. Who I am is a flawed, screwed up person who makes tons of mistakes and hopefully does some things right, has raised a couple of beautiful children, and has some amazing relationships. And all of that is true at the same time. but I really value human connection. And I think it's why our world is so broken, that we don't have enough people valuing human connection. And I think empathy is a superpower. So those things combined made me want to share my story in the hopes that maybe somebody going through a battle like it, or something different, but still challenging, was comfortable listening to my story, and hopefully.
Yeah. I found when I saw your videos, like, so in the mortgage industry, a lot of people have tried to get into video, and most people haven't. And they're like, well, I don't like how people see me on camera or whatever. And it's like, they see you in person. If you don't like it on camera, you should probably not go outside. But you see some people kind of give it a shot, and they're like, I'm going to talk about, like, it's almost contrived in trying to talk about something or be somebody that you're not. And it's most likely going to be about mortgage, which is fine for people that do mortgage-based things. But when I saw your your post before I saw your video. And when I saw your video, I'm like, okay, this is right. Like, this is what he should be saying to people. This is what I need to hear. And I remember that being a thing that I would watch and be like, all right, like, it gave me what I needed for the day, for that day, it gave me that perspective. And so first of all, thank you for doing those videos. But it also gave me it is like, I remember going through the pandemic and doing videos, and like, do I really need to be, angry and sad? And like, and then I started getting these messages back from people going, I feel the exact same way. Thanks for putting that in video. And I'm like, I'll just keep doing it. Like, that's literally why I do video a lot of the times, is because somebody needs to hear it. I just did a video after I got a colonoscopy. And this is my new favorite Facebook experience. Got a colonoscopy. It was awesome. Dude.
The drugs are awesome.
Oh,
yeah.
Propofol, whatever they give you, propofol.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And I just looked at the doctor when the drug went in, and I said, just keep doing that forever. So I should never touch any drugs.
Every Seahawk loss.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and then you wake up and you're fine. So I thought, I had been scared of a colonoscopy. Sean McCluskey and Patrick Palmer made me get one. Like, they made fun of me for not, and they're like, you need to go in there and do it. And Patrick was like seriously, ordering me to do it. So I finally did it. And I post this video of like, just got done with the colonoscopy. Everybody needs colonoscopy. Like, this was the greatest thing ever. And I found out that they, nothing wrong. I'm good. But like, just knowing that felt really good. So fast forward now a couple months, and I just got a message on Facebook. Hey, want to let you know, I wasn't going to get a colonoscopy. There was no symptoms, no signs. Just got a colonoscopy because I saw your video, and I thought if Ken could do it, I'm gonna. And they found precancerous, a lot of things they needed to work on, and they're still working through it. And she's like, but thank you for that.
No kidding.
And she goes, I haven't told anybody about it. And I'm like, well, yeah, how's that working? Like, you just saw that you can have an impact.
Oh,
and
yeah,
so
no
she
kidding.
just posted. And
that's a pretty vivid example of how.
In like 30 minutes, she had 95 comments from people, and she's going to cause people to go do that as well, because she was open enough with what she's like, it's colonoscopy. Like, you don't want to talk about that stuff. Like, I don't want to be honest about those things, because those, that's almost like bathroom conversation, whatever, but like, it's going to save lives. And I think holding that back holding it back would have deprived me from what I needed to get out of that. And I think it's getting to the place where you can share those things and identify with people out there. It does build that community. I don't even really know. Like, her message to me was like, you don't know me, I'm a loan officer, but here's what happened. It's like, I know you now. Like, I feel more connected to her now because of that experience.
To me, it's what makes social media tolerable. It's the antithesis to what most people use social media. Not most, I shouldn't say that. That's an unfair statement. Many people use social media in a self-serving sort of way. Mm-hmm. And they post stuff that is either that humble brag we were talking about before, or, just it has a very narcissistic feel to it. They might not necessarily be narcissists, of course, but it has this really narcissistic feel to it. And I think when you're willing to go on and talk about something as unpleasant as a colonoscopy and have that significantly affect someone else's life, that they catch cancer early, and probably, it's not a stretch to say save their lives or save them a tremendously much more complicated process of healing. And forget that. I mean, something as serious as that, let's just talk about our struggles as much as we talk about our victories and our accomplishments. To me, this translates into how we lead other people. Now, I'm no longer in an active leadership role. I was for many, many years, but if we can be genuine, if we can be congruent with who we are and have empathy, but also can just be vulnerable enough, not completely vulnerable in the workspace. I think that can cross lines into inappropriate and all that, of course. But if we can be vulnerable enough for our humanity to show, then we have a much better job of interacting with others, which gives us more tools in our toolbox as a leader to lead others or to be led by others that we work for and work with. So that honest vulnerability to me is a superpower of social media. The narcissistic humble brag, look at me, how many likes can I get? That's the part that all of us look at and go, yawn. But the other is so incredibly valuable. And back to my 3 C's, the connection. We have the ability to connect with a perfect stranger through a colonoscopy that had a tremendously positive impact on the physical health of an individual you don't even know. That's gold.
Yeah. Let's talk about connection and jump into a topic that I love that you did this. So I saw you posting from Europe and I'm like, dude, this guy has decided to go live the journey. And you walked on a path. I told my wife about it and she's like, yeah, I know that. Like everybody knows it, but me apparently.
It's called The Way.
Okay.
There's a movie titled The Way with Martin Sheen and Emilio Estevez. Great little movie. I can't remember when it came out, but it was one of my inspirations for doing what's known formally as the Camino de Santiago.
Okay.
I had seen The Way years ago. I'd had friends, including a realtor in Portland, who's one of my dear friends, Kyra West, walked the Camino twice. And she posted just snippets on Facebook because the idea of the Camino is not that you're on social media all the time, it's that you're experiencing. But she posted a couple snippets on her first Camino, and I sent her a Facebook message going, hey, when you get back, I know you're not going to be on Facebook much, but when you get back, I got to talk to you because this is on my bucket list. Well, she did. She came back. We never hooked up. She did another one. And she posted, I said, okay, this time we gotta, and we did. I'd seen The Way, I'd heard other people that had done this, and in 18, I decided my time in the mortgage industry is drawing to a close. I knew that I was done. I knew that I could benefit by taking the paycheck, but I knew that my heart was no longer in it, and I wasn't gonna benefit my company. I was gonna put in time, I was gonna punch the clock, but really I was just gonna be a drain on the P&L. I'm not saying I wasn't gonna work. I was gonna work. I was gonna show up and work, but it wasn't going to be with an enthusiastic energy that I need to give it to justify my paycheck and to justify my existence. And if they could get somebody in there with more energy and more passion to go for it, then they should. So I didn't tell anybody that until later in 19, but I started to make my plan. And in August of 19, I resigned my position and I had already purchased my one-way plane ticket to Italy. My friend Antimo Cimino, who does tours and travel to southern Italy, well, to all over Europe, was there with a group. So I flew into southern Italy and I went and hung out with him in one of his tours and saw some old friends from previous trips to Italy. I rented a car and drove up the coast and I went to, I don't even remember what town I went to, but I flew from Italy to Pamplona and got there late at night and, Italy to Madrid, train from Madrid to Pamplona. And the next day I got up in the morning and took a bus from Pamplona to a little town called Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in southern France. And it's the beginning of the French route of the Camino de Santiago. So people do the Camino for a million different reasons. Historically, it was a very Catholic thing. I'm not, but it was. That's kind of its roots is legend or fable has it that the bones of St. James, the apostle of Christ, are interned at the cathedral at Santiago de Compostela. I think that's probably more allegory than reality, but maybe, who knows. Anyway, so the Catholics are very devout about this. In the cathedral there, they do the whole thing with a massive incense thing. I forget what you call that. We couldn't go in when I arrived in Santiago because the cathedral's under renovation. But I decided I was going to do this. I've been surgically repaired more than most. I mean, so many of my parts have been put back together with extra added equipment. Knees, hips, not hip replacement, but both shoulders have been done, both bicep tendons, back, neck, fusion in my cervical spine, so many different injuries. I thought, man, at 57 years of age, can I do this? And so I had my backpack with all my stuff in it, and I showed up in SJPP and stayed the night there in a hostel. You stay in albergues. They call them albergues. They're hostels. You can stay in hotels, but the experience is more real if you stay in the hostels. And I decided for me, it was a pilgrimage. It wasn't a Catholic pilgrimage, but it was a pilgrimage. It was disconnecting from the old habit I'd had for 20 some years and reconnecting with the new reality of whatever my life was going to look like after the mortgage business. And I think by the way, one of the lessons, and to stay in context with your podcast, one of the lessons was the great prophet Kenny Rogers once said, know when to hold them and know when to fold them. It was time for me to go. Mm-hmm. It was time for me to transition out of the mortgage industry, out of my role, and into something different. Didn't know for sure what it was, but it was time.
So and you didn't know that we were about to face the best mortgage business.
Yeah, I missed 2 years of the best, right? One of the best anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
And people ask me, do you regret it? And I go, no, because number one, I didn't have a crystal ball. And number two, I did something, I don't know if my body could, I'm sure my body could do it now, but who knows what would have transpired in the last few years since 2019. So in September of 19, September 1, I started walking up the hill, up the Pyrenees Mountains. And 33 days later, I ended up 500 miles, 33 days. I ended up in a little town called Santiago de Compostela. And I finished the Camino, walked every step of the way, carried my pack every step of the way. My knees hurt. I got shin splints. I fell one time and tore up my shoulder even more. In fact, my recent shoulder surgery was in part because of that fall on the Camino. Gosh. But it was an incredible experience, and it was a perfect way to transition out of a long career in the mortgage business, for which I am very grateful, and some of the amazing people I met along the way, including Patrick Palmer, also Tony Blodgett, who I just value and esteem to this day, and some that I don't miss, but most are really some great experiences. And that was transformative. I started as a Kirk Faulkner, solo individual walking the Camino. I knew not a soul when I showed up in St. Jean, Pied-de-Port. Stayed in a hostel with perfect strangers, had breakfast the next morning with perfect strangers, put on my backpack and walked by myself. By the time I got, 33 days later, by the time I got to the destination, there was a group of 12 to 15 of us that were walking together, staying in the same hostel together, dining together, cooking together, hanging out together. And to this day, we still stay in touch via Zoom from all over the world. Mexico City, Canada, England, Great Britain, Brazil, Germany, I'm missing a few, but Sweden. These beautiful souls from all over the world experienced human connection, sometimes without even being able to share a language very effectively. I remember having a chat with one of the people. She's from Brazil, so she speaks Portuguese. So even the Spanish the little Spanish I knew wasn't really helpful because Portuguese is significantly different from Spanish. We communicated via Google Translator and had a fabulous conversation, deeply connected conversation. So the Camino for me was, I would call it a spiritual experience, but not a religious one. It was going deep inside of Kirk and getting a feel for who I am now that I'm done with that. That door's closed. I'm not going back. And now, what is it going to look like going forward? And those relationships stay with me to this day. It was one of the most profoundly life-altering, I hope to do it again experiences I've ever had.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it bookended your career in the mortgage industry and allowed you to transition into something new with, how much did you stay off your phone while walking?
Oh, unless you're taking pictures, you stay off your phone. You're not engaged. So the only reason your phone's out when you're on the Camino is to take pictures because it's magnificent. And I posted I did towards a few weeks in, I started recording some video because I thought, okay, I do want to have some of this for posterity. So I started recording my impressions from the Camino, and I probably did 10 or 15 of them. I don't remember how many I did. But that was, again, to journal, basically to create a journal of the event. And the engagement from people back here was funny because they thought, wow, some of them really thought I was a badass for walking 500 miles and, doing this. I met an 84-year-old woman who had done 4 Caminos. I met a 65-year-old woman who had done 14 Caminos. Yeah. So anybody that wanted to do it that's in relatively decent health can do the Camino. So it's not like I achieved some. Sure. There are hard parts. Right. Going up the Pyrenees on day one I was breathing hard for sure. But anyone could physically do it. So I wasn't accomplishing this huge Herculean feat, but the work that was going on in here in my heart was fairly significant. And I remember day 3 is when I hurt my shoulder. On the third day, up and over the Pyrenees. Have my phone out taking pictures, walking past this had just walked through a small village. Now you're off the street into this path, farm, animals everywhere, a stream with a little stone bridge over it. And I'm taking pictures of everything. It's magnificent, right? Because once you go over the Pyrenees, you're now no longer in France, you're in Spain. Okay. Once you're down. So I walk across the stone bridge and I'm putting my phone away because I need to pay attention to where I'm walking. And I was like, do this. And I started to fall. I stumbled on the stone bridge, an uneven surface. And if I had not been carrying a 25-pound pack, I would have recovered. But when I started tipping, that momentum just pushed me all the way over, and I landed hard on the ground, really jacked up my shoulder, cut up my hand on, I landed at a blackberry briar, of course. Tore up my beautiful new Camino jacket I bought, a Patagonia jacket for the Camino, tore it up. And I'm sitting there, there's 3 dudes walking in front of me, and I'm embarrassed. I'm in serious pain. I thought at first I dislocated my shoulder. And they heard the commotion, and the guy said, "Are you okay?" And I said, I'm not sure. My shoulder's jacked up pretty good. He goes, "Well, we'll come back and check on you." So back in time, I'm visiting with my friend Kyra West, who's my Camino advisor before I leave.
Yeah.
And my last meeting with her, weeks before I left, Kyra said, "Just remember, Kirk, the Camino always provides." I went, "Oh, Kyra, that's so cool. Thank you so much." She goes, "No, that's not what I mean. Yeah, there'll be great moments, but something's going to happen and it's going to suck. You're going to be inconvenienced. You're going to get hurt. Somebody's going to steal your backpack. Something's going to happen. Remember, the Camino always provides." And I went, "Oh, okay, great." So walking along, fall, get up. These 3 dudes come back to help me. He says, "Are you American?" I said, "Yeah." Accent gives it away. "You too?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Where do you live?" I said, "State of Washington." He goes, "Oh, I'm from Enumclaw."
Oh, no way.
"Oh, wow. Cool." He goes, "Yeah, we're 3 EMTs that are doing the Camino together." And I went, "Kyra." I mean, I'm bleeding. My shoulder's a mess. And I get 3 EMTs on the trail to give me a little field exam to make sure I'm okay to walk. So takes my pack off, takes my jacket off, does a little exam of both shoulders, the one that's jacked up and the one that's not, and says, "Well, there's nothing protruding. You didn't dislocate it," which by the time I got up, I knew it wasn't dislocated. It was just really bad. And he goes, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, what are my choices?" He goes, "Well, there's 3. You can, we'll walk back with you to the road. We'll get a taxi, hail you a taxi, and go on the next town and figure it out from there, get seen, go to Pamplona. Or you can go back to town. We'll get you a taxi. You can ship your backpack, and you can just walk to the next place without your backpack, or you can put your backpack on and walk." And I said, "Well, I kind of vowed I'm going to do this whole thing with my pack. I'm not going to ship it." And he goes, "So what do you want to do?" I said, "Would you help me get my backpack on?" So they helped me get my backpack on.
Oh, my
and
gosh.
I was just determined that I wasn't going to miss a moment of walking the Camino. And it was uncomfortable, but I knew I wasn't going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got back, a year and a half later, I finally had surgery. I had this rotator cuff I tore 90% tear from playing ball with my son and his friends. Mm-hmm. This one was detached. When the doctor did the MRI, he said, "Your rotator cuff is detached."
Oh my gosh.
So we have to reattach it. It wasn't just a tear. And anyway, Kyra's words, the Camino provides. It provided all the way along. It provided human connection in the most beautiful, profound way with people that I still know and love today. Mm-hmm. And it was incredible.
Wow.
It's hard to describe.
Yeah. It's interesting too, the backpack. Because that really is, there's a couple lessons there, right? You looked at it and went, "I said I was going to do this, I'm going to do it." And for you, the lesson was, I can continue working through things that I said I was going to do. We were on a backpack trip. I'll never forget this. I was super young, 20s, and maybe 30. That was young. And I went up, a buddy of mine, Oscar Meyer, that's his real name.
That's great.
The 4th. So Oscar
Does he have
and
the car, by the way?
No.
He needs it.
I've seen that car drive by. So I'm out with Oscar. We're just like bounding up hills, and like back then I could do anything. And we got the call. We got to the camp we were going to. We had gotten lost during the day, and so we had over a fallen forest. It was a crazy day, and we're all the way to camp, and we get the call on the walkie-talkie that one of the guys or 2 of the guys aren't going to make it up the hill because they're just done. It was the longest day of all time. Like, we did a lot that day. And so we're like, "We'll get them." So we start running back, and like we take our backpacks, drop at camp. We go running back down this huge hill, and we get to these guys, and one of them is a fire chief, and he's about to retire, and he doesn't want to give up his pack. And I'm like, "Give me your backpack." And he goes, "I don't want to." And it was the biggest moment where for him, his learning lesson out of that was to be able to let somebody else carry his pack, because he had always done his own stuff, like firefighter. Like,
absolutely.
At that level, like, nobody helps me. I help everybody. And I'll never forget taking the guy's pack and watching him process that and watch it. Like that whole night we talked through it. Like, what's it like to get somebody else to help? And there's just so many moments that can happen from that where you can pull the lesson out of, I needed this, right? You needed to go on. And so you
And there
did.
was no danger. I knew that I wasn't going to harm myself more, as opposed to packing up a steep hill with a heavy pack when you're already just gassed. There's some health and safety issues that come into play with that.
Totally.
I knew I wasn't going to harm myself. The terrain is up and down, but it's not mountainous after the Pyrenees. So I knew that I wasn't going to.
But if you're looking for the lesson in it, while you're there, you had so many different ways. They gave you 3 options.
Yeah.
And you're like,
I knew number one wasn't
going to be the one I need? Right.
I'm not quitting.
Right. And you're like, what's the one that I need at this moment? And I think that we're all faced with those things sometimes. I've got 2 or 3 options. Which one's going to get me what I need out of this experience?
Back to the podcast objective, the lesson is, that happened on day 3. And my first thought was, I just ruined my Camino. I've been planning this for a year or more, and I just ruined it on day 3. And to stop and go through that and now realize, no, I didn't. The obstacle is the way.
Yeah.
This is going to change my Camino experience. But what it did is, later that day, I had met a woman on the hike. Her name was Sarah from Canada. So, you talk to people you can talk to, because a lot of people are from Europe and don't speak English. And I don't speak much Spanish. She was ahead of me at that point, even before I fell. And so I finished the day, tired, I'm in pain. I get to the town, I'm going to get a bed in a hostel. And I'm walking across this footbridge in the town, and across the bridge is Sarah and this other woman coming across. And I said, good to see you. And she looks at me and she goes, what happened to you? I said, long story, I fell. And I go, I just got to get a bed. She goes, not here, you don't. They're all full. Every albergue here is full. We're walking on 4 or 5K to the next town. Seriously? You want to come with us? Sure. So we start walking along, and this lovely blonde lady from Germany starts chatting. Can you do it with everybody? Who are you? Why are you here? What made you want to do the Camino? All that stuff. Her name was Daniela. And we start talking about life. We start talking about future and hope and all that stuff. And there was just this instant connection of our humanity, right?
Yeah.
She spoke fluent English and fluent Spanish and was German. We keep going along, and she sees me taking my pack on and off. Every time you stop for lunch or coffee, you take the pack off, and then getting it back on was a bit of a chore for me. So she kept saying, you really need to be seen. And I said, well, that's not going to do any good. I don't speak Spanish and all that. She goes, we get to Pamplona, we'll find you a doctor, and if need be, I'll translate. And this is somebody I met 2 days before. We're in Pamplona 2 days later. We walk all day to get to Pamplona. We walk all over town to find a doctor that will treat pilgrims, foreigners, basically. There's people who can be treated by their healthcare system, and then if you're not part of that, you have to be treated by a different doctor. We finally find one, hour and a half walking around Pamplona in the heat with our backpacks, haven't checked into the albergue, find a doctor, get called into the office. She's translating everything. She's in the room. It was nothing inappropriate. I'm fully clothed. He just took off my shirt to assess my shoulder and said, without x-rays or MRI, I can't really tell you much other than give you some pain pills and some anti-inflam and send you on your way. But that appointment would have been impossible without a translator and an intelligent translator who can take medical terminology and go back and forth with it. So this beautiful soul sacrificed her comfort and time to do that for me. And then now we're an hour and a half back to the hostel and then crash. And we were friends from that moment on and still remain in touch today.
And you don't fall, that never happens.
No, that doesn't happen. I don't meet the paramedics. Towards the end of the Camino, at the very last week of the Camino, I'm walking along with Danielle and a couple other people. We'd met in our little posse. And I see these 3 guys walking ahead. I hear them talking. I'm going, it sounds familiar. And we get up to pass them, and it's the dudes from Enumclaw. And I said, oh my gosh, my friend Kyra West, the Camino provides, you got to meet you, because between the two of you, the Camino is really, so I was able to introduce these 2 people who were so significant in my Camino experience and the Camino providing, and my friend Kyra echoing in my ear that the Camino provides. And that is so life, that is so business, that is so everything we face, but we lose perspective when we're so in it. When we're in the moment, we lose perspective. And if we can just stop and step back from the moment, from the shoulder injury, from the cancer diagnosis, or from the rainy day one after another, the relatively innocuous stuff, and we can simply say, I'm going to gain some perspective here. If we could do that, then we have so much to offer those people we work with, that we work for, that work for us, or that we just engage with on a regular basis at the grocery store. I mean, to me, that's what the obstacle is, the way really requires, is that you recognize that there's an obstacle, you step back and gain some perspective, and then you move forward, maybe in a revised direction. Maybe I should have taken my backpack off and shipped it, but I was going to finish the Camino. I didn't, so that created some new obstacles that I was able to overcome. Whatever it is, cancer, the obstacle is the way. And if cancer had killed me, which it certainly could have, it was an aggressive enough form of cancer that if it was stage 3 or 4, I'm probably not sitting here today. I went for a second or third opinion up in Seattle at Virginia Mason. And the guy there was the head of urology at Virginia Mason, and he was an oncologist. And he saw all my labs from here. And he said, he swore at me. He said, keep doing the treatments, but don't trust the treatment if that thing comes back. Don't just keep doing it. If that thing comes back, that little bastard is going somewhere. You have a very aggressive form of cancer. So if it comes back, lose the bladder.
Whoa.
Don't hesitate. It's called neobladder surgery. That's a whole other conversation for another time. But he said, if that comes back, don't mess with BCG. Lose the bladder now.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Perspective.
Yeah.
So I take that with me into my approach, and I go through the whole treatment, and I don't finish it. I don't end it at half. I go all the way through because it's working for me so far. And as long, I really like to keep my bladder. So as long as it's working, I'm going to keep doing it. I'll keep puking for a while longer if it means keeping my bladder. Everything in life is just stepping back and gaining perspective. I promise you, Ken, as you know, I fail at this every day, like especially in traffic. Yeah. Cut me off on the road and see how much perspective I have.
Right.
But regardless, I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
And when I do step back from being an ass on the road because somebody cut me off or didn't use their turn signal or whatever, I regain myself and realize, okay, perspective.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, if there's anything transferable to somebody who's still in the business, who's still managing people, being managed by people, or serving clients. Hopefully that's their motivation, is to serve their clients effectively and with meaning. Perspective is probably the word I would use to describe my past, well, forever.
Dude, I needed this. I can tell you that right now. Like this has been a great conversation because I think that's just a huge lesson for me. So I appreciate you, man. And
You're
I'm
a champion of it, my friend.
I'm gonna have Mindy listen to this and be like, "Hey, go listen to this and see why I had coffee with this guy," because this is like our conversation. Like this isn't a for a podcast thing. This is just.
Well, and I was a little self-conscious coming here, Ken, because I'm not in the business anymore. So I don't have, I don't have tangible goods to offer people who are struggling right now in the business as far as the day in and day out of a mortgage originator or a realtor or something like that. But this is me. This is my life, and this is what brought me to the place I am, having grown this much and hopefully with a whole lot more to go.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate your time.
Glad to be here.